What's up, Facebook? What's up, Instagram? Going live again today because it's been an exciting week, especially if you're a patriot. Well, let me emphasize, if you're a reading and studying patriot, it's been a week where all you got to say is hashtag checkmate. But, you could have been knowing this the whole time. You wouldn't have to waited till the week of to go hashtag checkmate, because the hashtag checkmate was really June the 16th, 2016, 15, actually. Take that back. June the 16th, 2015. And then November the 8th, 2016. Get my years mixed up there. Man, it's been an all-out operation. Now, I know that people are getting tired and fatigued, and you think, oh, Derek Johnson's just dragging this out. He keeps dragging it and dragging it. He comes up with something weekly to keep dragging it out. How come every bit of my work can be backed via laws and orders that are currently invoked right now? And then there's all these, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what you want to call them. I call them nuggets or Scooby snacks. There's all these little Scooby snacks over here that you have to explain that quote-unquote Joe did not do, that are lawful, right? The flip version, though, like the flip, the polar opposite, the things he did not do by law, that explain and outline that what you're witnessing is a strategic operation. Now, what a lot of people are not doing right now, and some of it is innocent, because from 2016 and back, depending on how old you are, you've been brainwashed. You've been controlled and brainwashed. A lot of it by design. But there's also has to be some responsibility added there that shows that also people are lazy and complacent and don't want to put in the work. I mean, there's a lot of people who just don't want to look in the mirror and be like, you know what, I might be actually part of the problem. Now, being part of the problem in a scenario like this don't mean that you should be kicked out of the country or lose your citizenship or anything of that nature. You just have to apply that, hey, if I'm going to whine, complain, gripe, fuss, bicker, all these other things about something, then you might want to know what? The ingredients to it. You know, I'm not a great cook, but if someone cooks me something, I'm not going to whine and complain about it because I can't cook it. And it may not have tasted as great, but I know my version would have been trash. See how that works? So many people are fatigued because, why? You don't even know what's going on. You don't know the laws, you don't know the orders. But then there's one other very big key piece that most even patriots are missing. The appreciation, but also the reading and studying of the part of the military you don't know about. Most Americans, you just know the military because your daddy or your cousin or your son or your uncle or somebody served. Now, you can know every intricate detail of what they did in the military, but you got to be able to look at the military as a massive whole. All the different laws, all the different regulations, all the different strategies. There's a bunch of them. So when you hear anybody automatically out the gate say this is hogwash or it shouldn't take longer than 30 minutes to explain, they're part of the problem. They are the problem. That's the laziness. That's the complacency. They're also the ones who just let the hook get put in their mouth and they get drugged along. Then they wonder why America looks the way it looks, wonder why the states look the way they look, wonder why people look the way they look. So this week was like a massive, massive checkmate. I mean, if you're a patriot, and a lot of you are that follow me, a lot of you are. There's a lot still struggling, and if you're new, welcome. But if you're new, you're going to have to go back and back study a little bit. And I always wondered how it was going to be for me to be able to post on social media because, you know, there's so many posts There's so many pages, there's so many accounts, there's so many quote-unquote influencers out there that everybody's just getting, tied to all this. But even someone intricate like me, it's you got to go back. You got to go back and scroll, get on a laptop and scroll as far back as you can on my accounts if you're new, and work your way forward. A lot of my early material was chronological. Now, my material on my posts are for people who have read and studied, and that's why they love and like the post, and they share the post because they're read and studied, and they know where we are in this operation. If you're brand new, welcome. You're right where you're supposed to be. It may sound braggadocious, and that's all right. But retired veteran, put into a unique position to show you what's exactly going on right now via laws and orders of the blueprint, the chronological order blueprint that President Donald John Trump is working with. So, #1 bestsellers. This is part 1, and obviously part 2, which is a lot bigger. This is heavy into special operations. Heavy special operations. Not special forces, special operations. Unconventional warfare. Irregular warfare. You want to know what's going on? You've got to know what the commanders are working with. The Supreme Commander, President Trump, but then your admirals and your generals that did not get compromised and bought, that are working for humanity. Or are you going to continue to be lost? And you don't have to be. Because what's funny to me is when I see all these people out there posting, especially the ones that know me, and they're not sharing my books one bit or my platform. When there is a finite, intricate, chronological blueprint of what is exactly taking place right now that will guide people to the place you need to be mentally, and also whatever you want to call it right here, your soul, your fuzzy little feeling. Nobody right now, where we are in history, nobody with their attitude should be negative or pessimistic. And it's for humanity. It's not Republican. It's not conservative. It's not just for that. It's for everybody. Because this past week was a massive checkmate. So if you're brand new, probably going to struggle a little bit. But if you're a patriot, or if you've got friends and family, because I know a lot of people do, if you got friends and family sitting right on the fence, this should make them hop off and come on over to the good side. So, what are the odds of the timing of Jack Smith's testimony? Perfect. The timing of that cannot be any more perfect. Because I've been doing some podcasts recently called Principles. So many Americans don't live by principles. They live by feelings. They live by wishy-washy feelings and wishy-washy thoughts that don't get you anywhere. There's a difference in a thought and thinking. Whew. That's poetry right there. President Trump said early on, straight out the gate, 2017, early on, he said, be careful what you wish for. Now, you don't have to be a chess player to know what's going on with 5D chess. It helps to understand what stalemate means and what a white flag of surrender is. But what's genius about this whole operation, and you've heard me say it before, but what's genius about it is the fact that every single one of us, living, breathing, walking, that has a brain, has a conscience, but has a moral conscience, which God gave us, but a lot of people defy it. But every single one of us that has that, we have choices in life. We have a choice to choose what we want to be, who we want to be, etc. And so it's so genius how to flip such a massive psychological game, but also monetary system, central banks, and all these systems that were intricately woven together for the evil, plus all the other things, the trafficking, the human trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking, all these rings, right? It's just a massive global thing. Psychologically, to flip that, but to get people involved is to what? Give them what they want. And I don't like it, but there's nothing we can do about it, right? Me personally, I wish everybody could look at facts of what they're yelling at and go, oh, I said the polar opposite of that. Yeah, you did. And then go, look, I'm not beating you up. Flip it. Flip your script, right? This is for everybody. But people don't do that. People love drama, Americans especially, love drama, drama, drama. So you got to do what? In order to get them involved, you got to give it to them the way they will receive it. And that's what's taking place. But instead of telling on people, every single one of you out there, you know this. Whenever you've done something in your life that would be deemed as a slap on the wrist, it was much better for it to happen to you and to you come to that realization than it was for someone to tell on you, to be a snitch, or to tell on you, or rat you out, call you out, put you out on the platform and go, he did this, she said this, he said it. It's much better to trap people and make them come to a wall. Funny how the wall comes into play all the time. You trap people. When they get to this wall, and then everything around them is enclosed around them, and you have water, you have food, you have resources to sit it out, what do they have to do? White flag of surrender. Tell on themselves. Then, when they tell on themselves, all the people, the morons, the idiots, those who outright support evil, they all have to eat crow. So they all die together, right? Bingo, hashtag checkmate. So Jack Smith's timing this week was perfect to do with principles, because you have to stand on a principle in order for anybody with principles, but especially those of us in charge, and I'm nowhere near the top, but I'm just meaning, but those who are running the operation, those who are in charge, those who have the influence, but the good influence, in order for anybody in a position that's running the good operation to take you serious, you must have the same principles. You must buy into the same ideology. And I can outline over and over, even though this podcast is not for that, but I can outline over and over and over and over and over again how every intricate detail of this 45-47 operation it is so identical to our foundation and our Revolutionary War and the ideologies of our founders, it's not even funny. And anyone who says polar opposite, they are an enemy, and they're a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they're trying to deceive you and lie to you. And the way that you whip that is you got to know that plan. You have to know it. You have to read and study it and put it right here. Same thing that God tells you with the Bible. You got to put the scripture right here, right here, right here. You got to know it yourself. You can hear it all you want, but you got to know it. You got to feel it. Patriots, you got to be patient. There's two scenarios playing out right now. What I'm about to outline is what the target audience has to see. Give them what they want. You, the patriot, you got to be patient. Because if you're truly a patient, if you're truly a patriot, then you'll be patient. There's no other way if you're a patriot, your attitude will be correct. You won't be wishy-washy. The smallest little things, week by week, will not affect you whatsoever. You already have built-in patience, or you should. If you don't, you're not a true patriot. Not yet. So the whole timing of this is epic. But you have to know what happened in 2017 and 2021. All the capitulations that took place. President Trump doing things that's never been seen before. He, first president seen in the forbidden city of China in 500 plus years. Crowned a king in Saudi Arabia. We could keep going. But there's other podcasts that I have for that. Then 2021 to 2025 was a government in exile on President Trump, and it was a puppet government by quote-unquote Joe and that. All irregular and unconventional warfare. If you don't know any of those, that's the missing links, is all the military strategies. That's what most people are missing and not appreciating and not respecting, are the military aspects of this. But the bigger, broad strategies, not what you think of your daddy, your cousin, your son, or uncle, or whoever, mama, auntie, whoever. You got to know the bigger picture. So there's two scenarios playing out. One's for the target audience, one's for the patriots. But if you're a patriot, you're smiling right now. You should be. You should be hashtag checkmate, baby. You should be walking around everybody being like, I'm in your presence. In a good way. All right, so the first things you got to know about principles. The first things first. All right, President Trump, December the 2nd, 2025, just last month, President Trump put up a post. And he said, all, which means 21 to 25, 2021 to 2025, all of quote-unquote, I put the quotes, he didn't do that, but I put the quotes, because you know why. All the quote-unquote Joe's executive orders, proclamations, treaties, pardons, legal documents, etc., all have been terminated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who don't know laws and orders that well, terminating 4 years' worth of executive actions, legal documents, pardons, etc., if that were real, you talking about chaos and pandemonium, lawfully, judiciary, etc., would be pandemonium. It'd be chaos. Especially with the Democrats and the liberals. You're not seeing that. What you think is chaos and what you think is pandemonium is nowhere remotely close to it. That's all planned. Everything that you call pandemonium, it's all planned. It's all part of the plan. Because we're not to the end yet. But it's getting there. Oh, it's so close. This is why this is a hashtag checkmate moment. So, by principle, what's happening to a lot of quote-unquote patriots out there is you'll see a post like that by President Trump, but then he'll follow up with another post that says, Joe did this and Joe did that, and then you're like, oh, I don't know what. No, you got to read between the lines. If you know the chronological blueprint of the strategic operation that's taking place, which heavily involves all the strategies I talk about with irregular and unconventional warfare, which is a lot of hybrid warfare because they take a lot from guerrilla, asymmetrical, the irregular and unconventional, and cybersecurity, a bunch of different things, and integrate it. If you don't know any of that, you're going to be lost and unappreciative and look like the target audience, which they're supposed to look like that because they don't know any of this. A lot of them don't know it, but many of them don't want to seek to know it. So they're giving them what they want. All right, so this whole timing of everything, the principle would be is if President Trump is telling you that everything by quote-unquote Joe is terminated and gone, well, it never existed. And in his post, he tells you it never existed. In the same post, he said no legal effect. That is a term, ladies and gentlemen. Void ad initio. It's Latin. Void ad initio translates to no legal effect. Void ad initio means it never existed. I don't think anybody's heard me talk about this. I have posted it, but I don't think you've listened. I think people have heard it, but didn't listen how big that is. Never existed. That is the dash. That's the 45-47. And President Trump on December the 2nd validates the whole thing by saying void ad initio, but he said no legal effect, which is a translation of that, which means never existed. None of the 21 to 25 ever existed. But that's for the people who know what you're supposed to know, which is very few. The other portion's for the target audience. Oh, Joe did this, and Joe did that, and they let this, and they did that. Two scenarios. All right, now, let's move to Jack Smith. The principle is this. If all of 21 to 25 never existed, then Jack Smith can't exist. His appointment as special counsel, November the 18th, 2022, doesn't exist. By Merrick Garland, none of it exists. So you either got to believe on one portion or you got to believe the other. That's where you have to choose. And if you choose to believe all the drama and all the propaganda, what the target audience has to see, then you're on the wrong page. You need to remove yourself from here and go follow the mainstream. It's that simple. If you're saying it's hogwash and bullcrap and conspiracy theory, you're part of the problem. You are the problem. Military laws, military orders, military regulations, military strategies are not conspiracy theory. And that's the difference in me and everybody else out there. I show you straight up the .gov, .mil, how they integrate, how they combine, how they conjoin, and how they go together, and how they're enforced. So the principle is you either got to believe President Trump when he says they're all terminated and know what the implications of terminating 4 years worth of lawful actions would imply, and then know that, hey, there's a blueprint that goes with that, a chronological blueprint from his laws and orders from 2017 to present day, and know all the ways that I've tied in how that happened lawfully, or you got to believe all the other. Before you can appreciate this hashtag checkmate that I'm about to deliver right here. So you got to choose your side of the line. And if you want to be on the side with all the patriots that knows what's going on, then you got to divorce everything else and then study what the blueprint is. Study the strategic operation and everything that goes with it. So here we go. So old Jacko dropped all the charges on President Trump in December. All right. So what about 2022 to 2025, January the 19th, the day before? What happened to those dates, and then also 2028 moving forward? I'm going to pause you on that. We're going to come back to that. So guess who conducted this hearing? So he drops the charges in December. Now we're having a testimony by Jack Smith who conducted the hearing. GOP House Judiciary Committee. So why would the Republicans, Jim Jordan, why would Republicans call a Judiciary House committee to hear the testimony of Jack Smith after he dropped charges. So you'll see some articles out there saying, oh, the Republicans messed up and all this other stuff. Nah. That is noise. That is distractions. If you know every single law and order that is currently invoked right now, that outlines the strategic operation, the 45-47, you would be smiling and grinning, and you would be sipping on whatever you sip on for your cheerful moments. You would be walking around all of the people who called you names, call you crazy, call you a conspiracy theorist, call you a tinfoil head, or whatever. You'd be walking around them like you were the most popular king or queen in history. You would be walking around making jokes saying, please take the floor and bow to your highness. Hey, when you know, it's all right to be confident, baby. When you know what's taking place. Because it's all God-driven in the first place, whether you're a Christian or not, whatever. But it's all higher-driven. All right, so Jack Smith's testimony. Now, what the Democrats did, they focused on the term democracy. In this hearing, if you go watch the whole thing, which you don't have to, I'm break it down for you because I take all the key facts that you need out of it and tie it to your laws and the orders. All right, they focus on the term democracy, and then what's destructive about a president seeking to overturn, in which they use the term steal the election. So they're accusing President Trump of trying to steal 2020. When President Trump was saying that the Democrats stole it. So see, by principle, you can't, one side has to choose what term they're going to use. See how that worked? See how that was another checkmate moment? There's your principle right there. There's one of them. The Democrats are going to have to choose what term they want to use. Because if President Trump was trying to steal the election, but they're trying to say that he tried to steal the election, now we're going to pause there because this is not the holy grail moment. All right. First off, let's go to the term democracy. All right. You got to know our history. Our founders started a war first. They started the Revolutionary War. Then they established a military. 16 days later, they established the first war articles, which would be your military law. Then came the Declaration of Independence a year later. Then came the Articles of Confederation, which would be your first constitution, but it was still within the war, 1777. They tore that up. September the 17th, 1787, James Madison, sole author, wrote the Constitution. But from 1787 to 1789, March the 4th specifically, that's why March the 4th was our original inauguration date in history. From 1787 to March the 4th, 1789, in between those dates, the Federalist Papers. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay. 3 of them, that's it. They authored and or co-authored together 85 Federalist Papers. Those were promotion papers for the Constitution. So it had been like me, I have the documents that I wrote, and they were just giblets of notes from 2016 to 2021 that I published January 2021 for the people who knew me then. So those were my promotion papers for these books, basically. Which shows I had these published long before I wrote this book and put this out in December 2023. The Federalist Papers are promotion papers for the Constitution, meaning they went around telling people, this is why you're going to love the Constitution. This is why we need the Constitution. This is why we, etc., need the Constitution. Liberals never, all caps, all bold, underline, italics, whatever you want to put on. Libtards never quote the Declaration of Independence, and they never quote from the Federalist Papers. The only thing they use in their quote-unquote defense is the Constitution. The Constitution is not what you want to use as your defense, ladies and gentlemen. The Constitution was designed and written for us as a framework to keep our representatives in check on what we, the people, want. When that goes awry, meaning when that is derailed, when those entities go against the grain of our ideologies, that's where the Declaration of Independence gives us the prescription. That's where our rights come in. It says it is their right, it is their duty to overthrow such government. Liberals never quote from that. That's why they are an enemy of the Republic, and they should be treated as such. Because in Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14, I cannot stress this enough, the sole author of the United States Constitution, James Madison, wrote in Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14 that democracies are dangerous. So see, there's your principle. When you hear a liberal, or a rhino even, talk about democracy, straight out the gate, we are not a democracy. Because Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14 outline such. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution says Republican form of government. Republic. We're not a democracy. I'd love to slap the ever you know what out of every liberal that says that. And rhino. J6. They hang on J6. Good Lord have mercy. Do they hang on J6? One, it was all part of a plan. President Trump, the military, the generals, the admirals trapped these people. They were trapped. They made them play out certain things. J6 was a play out of them being trapped. Meaning they had to go against the grain of the Constitution because they did not go into deliberation or whatever you want to call it and figure out what happened with Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, etc. They skipped through all that, rushed through all that. That's where you got to know Title III, Section 15, put into place in 1887. But you got to know, by principle, our electoral college, which Democrats and liberals have, boy, have they, if you are alive before, if you're over 40 years old, you should remember this. Hillary, all of them. They wanted to abolish the electoral college. So you're going to abolish Article 2, Clause 1, Section 2 and 3 of the United States Constitution. You're just going to remove that of the original Constitution because that is where it derives, the Electoral College. See how you got to know the very thing they used against you? They wave the Constitution around all the time. They want to abolish Article 2, Clause 1, Section 1 and 2, and the 12th Amendment, which amended Section 3 of that. This is why you've got to know these things. Then you got to be an originator. You got to believe in the origin. You got to believe in all the origin, the ideologies of why we're even having this conversation. We're sitting right here because of the ideologies. If the liberals want to use the word Constitution, then we got to go back to the origin. If they don't want to go back to the origin, then guess what they have to do? They have the right to assemble, not protest, right to assemble, and they can try to come and take it from us. They're not doing that, and they're not going to do that. The good old boys, cowboys, the bikers, the hippies, ain't none of us got involved yet outside of the military. They don't want any part of that. I can go ahead and tell you right now. We've got more ammo in this country. We got a ton of ammo in this country. They don't want any part of that. They don't want to fight like that. They're not going to fight like that. But by principle, if you're going to use the word Constitution, well, let's go back to the origin. Y'all use democracy. We're not a democracy. You say this. We're not. This is why you got to know your foundation. This is why you got to know what the commanders are working with. What is the blueprint? Who's in command? What blueprint are they using? Then you'll be able to cancel out all the noise. There's a lot of noise out there. The world is full of noise. So you need to know your origin, your foundation, what matters, what doesn't matter. So J6, Marquis de Lafayette, one of our French founders, said insurrections are the last line of defense of people losing their nation. Thomas Jefferson said that insurrections were good. They were good because it creates a balance there. Meaning something caused these people to do that. Even if J6 was real, which it wasn't. But for the people that thinks it was, this is what the target audience needs to hear. Sometimes it's good. You find out what people are going to stand for. You find out what people are going to fight for. You find out people who are tired of tyranny. Real tyranny. Gaslighting, manipulation, lying, deception, which is what Democrats and liberals do. That's all they do. And a lot of rhinos did as well. We can't ever disregard the rhinos because they were in it for money, and it was the language they were using. It wasn't right here. There's a lot of people who claim to be MAGA. There's a lot of people who claim to be President Trump, but they're not right here. They're all right here. All right, in this quote-unquote case that Jack Smith had on President Trump, on the very first page, it quotes 4 Title 18 codes. 4 Title 18. Title 18 are federal crimes and criminal procedures. That's the title of Title 18. That's what Title 18 will outline when you go to it on the house.gov. It's federal crimes, criminal procedures. Got to get a sip of this before I hit that hashtag checkmate. I'd rather be hunting some President Trump's coffee mug. You're a really, really great hunter. The best. Really terrific. Just fantastic. Other hunters, losers, total disasters. Everyone agrees you're the best. Believe me. I love that. Thank you to my social media manager. Thank you for my Christmas gift. I have a lot of great people in my life that do a lot of things behind the scenes. Great, great, great people. So, here's your hashtag checkmate, one of them. Oh, man. So, here's your principle. Here's another principle. Here's a hashtag principle and a hashtag checkmate. So, Jack Smith quotes Title 18. 4 codes. that President Trump violated by seeking to overturn the election. All right, first off, principle number one would be you must know you, we the people, you, whoever you are listening, you must know the election process, which my new book outlines. This is the one that outlines all of our history foundation. First book in U.S. history to put everything in one book, one location, which I'll read the titles later for you. But you must know the election process. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, Clause 3, 12th Amendment. You got to know the Electoral Act of 1887, Title 3, Section 15. I mean, this has been going on since our beginning. The Electoral College was established by our founders. So you vote every November. That was the Statute of 1845, the first Tuesday of November. Statute of 1845. It took them all the way to 1845 to establish that. So then you vote the first Tuesday of November. Then the electors have to turn in their votes December 20 of that. Well, I'd say 20, but counting what we've been doing the last however many years, 1900s and the 2000s. But the December, and then January the 6th is a date that they put in history. January 6th. A lot of people who didn't know any of this thought January the 6th was President Trump versus Joe Biden. They had never known in history that J6 was the day that they count the Electoral College. There's a process there. There's a checks and balances already there to make sure that it wasn't just, oh, Derek versus Susie. Oh, Derek got more votes, Susie lost, Derek's the president. No, they had all these safeguards leading up to. A president can challenge that. Why wouldn't he and why couldn't he? The other principle is this. If the Democrats have nothing to hide, why not let a president challenge it? If he's a loser, the results will show that. So there's your number 2 principle. And your number 2 checkmate, because what I'm about to show you in a minute. But first and foremost, Jack Smith quotes 4 Title 18. Well, by principle, if you're going to use one title, a Title 18, then it must apply to what? You can't just have it on this side. It has to apply to this side. And the Democrats are saying that President Trump tried to steal the election of 2020. And President Trump says that Joe Biden stole the election of 2020. So there's that steal word again. They can't call President Trump any kind of name for seeking the results when they in turn use the same terminology saying that he's the problem. See, that's a principle. It's one or the other. Which one is it? Now, again, let me reemphasize, this is for the target audience. This is not for you patriots out there. This is for the target audience because the whole thing's an operation. The whole thing. 2020 is just one little, it's a big sliver, but it's still a little piece of the big sliver. So don't get carried away in the comment boxes out there. Hang tight. Watch this. Title 18. So Jack uses that as his main argument in this case that he dropped the charges of. But I'm going to show you the hashtag checkmate right here. So, if you went to Google, all right, way back, if you went to Google and you put in there Title 10 order by Joe Biden, troops to border, there's an executive order that quote-unquote Joe signed that was an additional troops to the border. It wasn't a foundational order. The foundational Title 10 order of the National Guard to the southern border is found in Proclamation 9844 by President Donald John Trump, February the 5th, 2019. What are the liberals always yelling? That a president must have congressional authorization to use the military, which is true, after 90 days. So if the troops were at the border in 2023 from a Title 10 order put into place February the 5th, 2019, don't you think there's a congressional authorization there? If quote-unquote Joe is sending more troops to the border, yes. December the 20th, 2019, President Trump. So see February the 5th, 2019, December the 20th, 2019, Proclamation 9844, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Section 1550 is part of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020. Still active. Quote-unquote Joe does not have a single foundational Title 10 or 32 order. Military orders are not continuous orders. There's you another hashtag checkmate. Now, foreign leaders. During the 2020 debate with quote-unquote Joe, President Trump said it was you, Joe. It was you who recommended the Logan Act on General Michael Flynn. It was you, Joe, who recommended to Obama the Logan Act on General Michael Flynn. Those of you that don't know anything about General Flynn, he supposedly met with a Russian foreign leader. All right, the Logan Act is private correspondence with a foreign leader. Private correspondence with a foreign leader. President Trump met with 12 foreign leaders 13 different times from April 2024 to December 2024 at Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower, private establishments. You know what the Logan Act is, ladies and gentlemen? Hashtag checkmate. Title 18, Section 953. So, an election will have two parties saying, he cheated, he cheated. That's two different things that can be proven, and I'm going to show you that how it's going to be proven as the last big, massive checkmate, the Holy Grail checkmate. But for right now, for people who don't know that, that's a two-way street to people who don't know what's been taking place. Because they could say, well, my guy, your guy cheated. And then the other side's going, your guy cheated. They don't know the laws. They don't know the orders. They don't know what's been prescribed. They don't know what's been invoked. So let's go with their theory for a moment. Election is a two-way street. And it will be a hearsay because they don't know what's actually counted the votes. Well, let's go to what everybody around the world witnessed. The southern border and the foreign leaders, every single eye and ear, every single eye that can see and every single ear that can hear, witnessed President Donald John Trump at the border in Texas in February 2024. He was standing there with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general of Texas. No other person with a presidential title was seen with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general of Texas, but President Donald John Trump. If President Donald John Trump was a former president and he was standing at the border in a crisis, in a military operation, during a sitting president, that would not only have been a breach of national security, it would have also been a violation of his own Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency declared for election interference, because that was 2024. But a breach of national security, because if Joe was a sitting president, then President Trump is interfering with foreign policies and our own U.S. policies in a military operation. And the whole world witnessed it. The whole world saw President Trump there. President Trump would have no defense. He wouldn't have any defense if there wasn't laws and orders invoked that outline 45-47, that outline a strategic military operation. Because the Adjutant General, ladies and gentlemen, gives it all away. The Adjutant General reports to the Governor of Texas. The specific Adjutant General of Texas reports to the Governor of Texas unless what? Unless the National Guard are federalized by Title 10. The only federalization order in place for the southern border is Proclamation 9844. President Donald John Trump. Hashtag checkmate. Now, let's go to the foreign leaders. If President Trump meeting with 12 foreign leaders, 13 different times from April to December 24, guess what that would have been? Violation of the Logan Act, private correspondence with foreign leaders, visual for the whole freaking world to see, as it was all over news. It was all over his True Social, his everything. It would have been a violation of Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency declared for election interference, because it was still 2024 election year. And it would have been a breach of national security for meeting with foreign leaders with foreign policies that would have interfered with quote-unquote Joe if quote-unquote Joe was a sitting president. Hashtag checkmate. Then old Jacko said, I could have pursued President Trump if it wasn't for a second presidency. He was appointed November the 18th, 2022. 2022, the ending, 2023, 2024, couldn't bring charges? Couldn't bring charges? You had 2.5 years? Couldn't bring charges? Special counsel, a special counsel who was specifically appointed for this very moment, couldn't bring charges? You know, when the Watergate scandal was exposed, 1972, Nixon stepped down shortly after. So you have 2022 to 2024, well actually January 19, 2025, couldn't do anything. When you were specifically appointed for that very reason. During what the whole world witnessed and thought was a Democrat president, Democrat administration. But their own special counsel couldn't do anything about it. So why not leave the charges there and wait till President Trump is gone in 2028 and then bring the charges on? I mean, if this is detrimental to democracy, and if nothing's going on lawfully, and if nothing's taking place, and I'm a conspiracy theorist, then why not leave the charges on and wait to see what happens in 2028? Oh, no, that's right. We can't do that because you're special counsel. And you only had a window. And you missed your window. With the Democrat control? I love this stuff. I love this stuff because you take abuse out there. You, the people, patriots, You've been ridiculed. You've been mocked. You've been laughed at. And it's all outlined in laws and orders that everyone's supposed to appreciate and respect, because it is what provides their freedom. It's what prevents wolves in sheep's clothing from deceiving them. Deception. And you wonder why people like me don't worry about being a, you know what, a butthole, an a-hole? Because I know what's going on. I know what to protect you. I know how to find those who lie to you, deceive you, trick you. And I don't mind calling them out, because this is not a popularity contest. As Tom Hogan says, I'm here for one job, and one job only. And I don't care what you write about me, what you say about me, but we're going to kick your you-know-what. We're taking names, kicking butt, and we are going to clean this out. When it's all cleaned out, you're going to remember this. You're going to remember who was and who wasn't. You're going to remember who is and who ain't. Now, I'm going to read from the testimony. This is coming up to the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail, hashtag checkmate. Representative Pramila, however you say her name, Jayapal or Ayapal, or however you say her name, from India, Democrat, made a comment to Jack that President Donald John Trump was trying to steal the election. So she specifically used the terminology that President Trump was trying to steal the election. So there's your principle again. So it's okay for quote-unquote Joe to steal the election, but not for President Trump. There's your principle. That's your liner principle right there. So it's okay for Joe, for the people that thought it was real, it's okay for him to steal the election. It's okay for their election results, but it's not okay for President Trump to challenge it. So there's your principle there. That's your smaller one. So here's the key question, and watch this. She asked, how would you describe the toll on our democracy if we do not hold a president accountable for attempting to steal an election? Jack replies, my belief is that we do not hold the most powerful people in our society to the same standards, to the rule of law. It can be catastrophic, because if they do not have to follow the law, very easy for people to understand that they don't have to follow the law as well. And so I think the law should be applied equally to everyone. Then she goes, and what do you think the toll is for future elections and future presidents who is trying to steal an election? And then Jack replies with this, I don't think we hold people to account when they commit crimes. It sends a message that those crimes are okay, that our society accepts that. I believe that if we don't call people to account when they commit crimes in this context, it can endanger our election process, it can endanger election workers, and ultimately our democracy. The attack on this Capitol on January the 6th was, and it said, and then he excerpts that the appeals court of Washington, D.C. said this, it was an attack on the structure of our democracy. One, D.C. is a foreign territory, straight out the gate. Now, that sounds far-fetched for people to think that a piece of land within a piece of land is a foreign territory, but the military recognizes D.C. as a foreign territory. When you're flying into D.C., even the Department of War aircraft must request clearance to go into the D.C. area. The military has to request clearance to go into the D.C. area. It is a foreign territory. That's the first thing. Two, the election process. You got to know the election process. There's your electoral college. That's your Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 and 3, the United States Constitution. That's your Electoral Act of 1887. That's Title 3, Section 15 of U.S. Code. You probably need to know those first. Then you need to know in regular warfare and unconventional warfare, you got to know in our foundation, the military was established first. So when a government goes against the grain of our very foundation, manipulation, gaslighting, deceiving, deception, etc., the military can step in and it can override anything federal. If you don't know that, but especially if you don't believe that, you're an enemy to the Republic as well. You're an enemy. And you're going to be treated as such. Because there's enough of us that know, and there's enough of us that ain't going to put up with it. We're taking back this nation, and you're not doing a dang thing about it. And if you try, you're going to see what's taking place with ICE right now. You want a record for your life? Go get you one. We'll give you a record. If you want to end up in a box, go get you one. There's plenty of them being made in the state of Mississippi. Get you one. But if you'll shut up long enough, all those out there who are crowing and bickering and fussing about something you don't even know about, or maybe you do and you don't like it, if you'd shut up long enough, you'd realize this is for you, not against you. Taking up for child traffickers, taking up for crime, taking up for gangs. I mean, think how low liberals have gotten. Every liberal in this nation who does that ought to be deported immediately. Effective immediately. To think how low this nation's gotten. The IQ of some people ain't there. So, then they mention society. Society, meaning you, the people. That you won't accept it or you will accept it. Well, that's where you have to know what? The laws, the orders, the legislative process, the judiciary process, everything. The electoral process, the election process. They include you in that society. So if you're whining, complaining, griping, fussing, but you don't know any of the processes, you're the problem. Then he says people, though. The question was specifically, this whole testimony is about President Trump. He didn't say hold President Trump accountable. He said hold people accountable. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What do we have here? Uh-oh. We have a workout moment for the disabled veteran. We have a twerking. Woo! We got to hold people accountable, he said. Oh, Jacko, do you realize what you said there, buddy? Yeah, you do, because the whole thing is a strategic operation. Hit that Trump dance. Hit that Trump dance. Hit that Trump dance. Do the Trump dance. Hashtag checkmate. Hashtag checkmate. Hashtag checkmate. Hashtag checkmate. Do you hear what he said? Do you hear what he said? We got to hold people accountable, not President Trump. We got to hold people accountable. Uh-oh. What were they just yelling to the National Guard recently? That don't obey unlawful orders. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, spaghetti-o! Whoever invented that little cheesy saying, there's this little thing called Executive Order 13848 that declared a national emergency September the 12th, 2018. That quote-unquote Joe just happened to continue 4 years in a row to hand back to President Trump January the 20th, 2025. Woo! That declared a national emergency for election interference. And in that executive order, you've heard me say it now for 4 years now, you've heard me talk about this one line in this executive order. It says specifically in this executive order that although no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulation in any United States election. Now let's break that down one more time. although no foreign power, no, nada, zilch, zero, although no, nada, zero, zilch, foreign power has altered the outcome, or, there's that little conjunction, that two-letter word, or vote tabulation in any United States election. They don't say 1, 2, 5, 10. Some, a few, it says in any United States election. You see what quote-unquote Joe continued? Do you see what quote-unquote Joe supported? For those of you out there that thought quote-unquote Joe was real, do you see what he continued? Do you see the lettering, the wording, the terminology of what Joe continued? Although no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulation. Guess what vote tabulation is, ladies and gentlemen? That's January the 6th. That's when they tabulate the votes. Jacko! Thank you, Jacko! Hold people accountable. Not President Trump. Hold people accountable. You know what this leads to, ladies and gentlemen? This leads to another thing that quote-unquote Joe would have been participant of. See, from 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024, the National Guard cybersecurity teams have been deployed from anywhere from 14 to 27 states in the 2018 election, 2020 election, 2022 election, and 2024 elections. Now, why would the National Guard cybersecurity teams be there for 2 of President Trump's elections and 2 during quote-unquote Joe Biden's presidency? The National Guard. Remember those military orders again? Remember how military orders are not continuation orders? You must have congressional authorization. Well, there's no Title 10 invocation by quote-unquote Joe, and there's no Title 32 funding by quote-unquote Joe. Don't obey unlawful orders. Uh-oh, you morons. Guess you spoke too soon. Guess you went out there and painted yourself as an enemy way too soon. See what happens when you don't know the laws and the orders? See what happens? You just automatically expose yourself for being a moron, an idiot, and an enemy to the Republic. Because the National Guard have been deployed for 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024 elections. Nowhere before that, you can look it up, they weren't there for 2008, 2012, nowhere before. Over here that you can't see, there's a big target of that mule, that jackass, that donkey that the Democrats use for their actual logo. Right in the ass of the ass. And then, quote unquote, Kamala validates everything. She validated it on Jimmy Kimmel. She said nothing's random. It's been a plan for decades. Yes, it has. President Trump, October 2024, a few days before the election of 2024, he said we're an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. The Great Liberation starts November the 5th. The Great Restoration starts January the 20th. From 2021 to present day, President Trump and the media have used the terms occupied country, which is occupied territory, white flag of surrender, capitulations, puppet government, and restoration. Those are all law of war manual terms, ladies and gentlemen. Occupied territory and puppet government are in the same chapter, military occupation. The term restoration is from the law of land warfare. which coincides with the continuity government. Who established the continuity government? President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who just so happened to be a 5-star general, rare 5-star general. Go read about a 5-star general. They're rare. We've only had 8 5-star generals and admirals since the Civil War. Only 8. 5-star general. President Eisenhower established the continuity government and presidential emergency action documents together. They go together. Presidential emergency action documents. There's only 4 ways the military pairs with federal. Executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, treaties. Those 4 are the components of a presidential emergency action document. If you look at President Trump's nominations, every nomination for ambassador is either a special forces military retired or a veteran and or a businessman or woman. Go back and read Eisenhower's original continuity government after a catastrophic event. Look at the aftermath, what his plan was for a nation to get back on its feet after a catastrophic event, after a disastrous moment, after something of this complexity. High velocity, as quote-unquote Kamala called it on Jimmy Kimmel. All accurate. Go back and read Eisenhower. His prescription for the aftermath of a catastrophic event, military and businessmen and women in all roles. That's why President Trump posted not long ago, he posted 45, 46, 47, 48. He's already telling you number 48 is ours as well. The whole thing's an operation, strategic operation. And then September last year, he was sitting with the Turkish president. He said, he remained my friend while I was in exile. He mentioned the term exile 3 different times with heavy emphasis on the word. Exile. Government in exile. It's an irregular and unconventional warfare strategy. The polar opposite of that is a puppet government. These were used in the World War II. Hashtag checkmate. See, we're leading right up to all roads lead to Obama. Kamala's not the big prize. Jack Smith's not the big prize. Every bit of these lead into the bigger prize. So if you're a patriot, be patient. Chill out. Relax. It's all part of the plan. We're rolling right to July the 4th, 2026. President Trump said this 4 years ago. He said Memorial Day 2025 and July the 4th, 2026 are going to be markers leading into the golden age. So I'm going to tell you what right now. If you ain't happy after this podcast, something wrong with you. If you a patriot and you ain't happy after this, you ain't hashtag checkmating everywhere you go, your friends, your family, whoever. If you don't share this, if this ain't the most shared podcast, I don't know what could be. I don't know what could be. Because hashtag checkmate. Perfect. But see, I teach you how to go through like Kamala's interview. She says everything you need to hear. But if you hear the manipulation and gaslighting, then you're still part of the past. She is consistent. That needs to be there because she's not the end goal. She's not the end prize. So once you learn to separate the gaslighting and manipulation and all the key terms of gaslighting and manipulation, you'll hear the nuggets when you know the laws and the orders invoked. When you know the chronological blueprint, you'll hear that in even that, where she mentioned 2 different big key things that I've already posted on my pages. You'll hear the key nuggets when you know the key nuggets of the chronological blueprint of President Trump's laws and orders that he's invoked that all require the congressional authorization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But also the bigger picture that I think most people are struggling with. You got to know military strategies of irregular and unconventional warfare and how they apply to this specific scenario. Once you learn those, you got it. Got it made, baby. So, Also, I think it's funny too that this book right here I wrote about liberals. It's real simple. It's all their hypocrisy, and it paints scenarios like that. But this book right here is the one that's selling like hotcakes in front of a Weight Watchers event right there. This is the one that'll help you know your foundation. I don't know why they never did it before in history, but no one put all these in there. So I'm going to read it really quick. Chapter 1, Revolutionary War. 2, Military Establishment, Common Sense, Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, Treaty of Paris, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, March 4, 1789, the Bill of Rights, Marlborough versus Madison, 1803, Insurrection Act, 1807, War of 1812, Articles 1, 2, and 3, Article 1 breakdown, Article 2 breakdown, Article 3 breakdown, the Four Ways Military Pairs, Statute of 1845, Ratification Process, National Security Act of 1947, the Department of War, the NDAA, the White House Military Office, the Emergency Alert System, Order of Successions, Executive Departments, NARA, your archives, Presidential Records Act, the 20th Amendment, Title 10, Title 32, Title 50, Title 10 versus Title 50, War Powers Act of 1973, paused on Instagram. War Powers Act of 1973, the Law of War Manual, National Security Strategy. Keeps pausing on Instagram for some reason. National Defense Strategy, National Military Strategy, Courts Martial, Military Tribunal, Tribunal versus Courts Martial, the DOD Directives, the DOD Instructions. Those are very key. Military Justice Act of 2016, the Writ of Habeas Corpus, 1798 Aliens and Seditions Act, Martial Law, Posse Comitatus, Joint Publication 3-57, the Ironclad Oath, Article 4, Section 4, Federalist Paper 10, number 14, Types of Warfare, Irregular Warfare, Special Operations, Unconventional Warfare, all the oaths since 1789, the 20th Amendment, the 22nd Amendment, Title 47, Section 606, and the Gettysburg Address, all in one book. So that's why it's 573 pages. But everything's in there. All of the 85 Federalist Papers makes up 236 pages, all in this book. So you have it all in one book. You don't have to go anywhere else. So rattletrap1776.com if you want them signed by me. And then they're on Amazon, which if you want them quick, if you got a birthday or whatever's coming up, you want it quick, then Amazon's the best way. I won't be signing those, obviously. But if you ever see me in person, I'll obviously sign them. But I sign everything that comes through rattletrap1776.com. If you want to contact my people, they have me at an event anywhere, whatever it may be, that's on DerrickJohnsonCountry.com. And then my link tree, make sure you're following the correct pages. There are a lot of fraud accounts, a lot of scam accounts, a lot out there. Linktree, linktr.ee/1776 nation. We'll find all of my official accounts, so be sure to follow those. And then, yeah. So, hey, you should have the best time right now if you're a patriot. This should be your, like, holy grail, checkmate to your friends, your family. Be cordial with it, be cool with it, but have fun with it. That's what the whole thing's about, is having fun. Quit focusing on dying and all the other things out there that's part of life. It's part of life. All right, focus on everything that's in our control. And what's in our control is already in control of the good guys and gals that made this whole operation take place, this world operation. It's a biblical, monumental, historical operation. The most biblical, monumental, historical ever known to man. All military is the only way. You probably need to know someone like myself that knows exactly what's going on. There's so much noise out there, too much noise. There's too many on social media thinking that they're an influencer, and they're not. So be careful. Be careful who you follow, but be careful what you wish for.